Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Are you also doing media reports for the Canoe and Kayak Club?
No,
No? Wow,
there's
there's
another.
another Jenn Jackson in Kamloops.
I know because there's a customer at Spoke who's Jenn Jackson, who's not me.
There you go. So I was thinking, wow, she's really into the scene here. Like she's in canoe and kayaking as well. So okay,
I'm
it's not the
just
same
doing
person.
everything. No, different Jen.
Yeah. So where are you right now?
So Barrie, Ontario, back home. I'm just visiting my parents for a little bit since nationals were out in Quebec. Is kind of on the way. It was a nice time to spend some downtime with them.
I can kind of look at the photos and get an idea that it meant a lot to you to win that race. But take me back to the finish line as you were crossing it. What was going through your mind?
Well, once I got my trip down, like the last descent to the finish, I was an absolute mess. In your mind, they tell you just, don't think about the end of the race, just focus on the riding. But I just couldn't not think about getting to the finish and winning. So I actually had the shakes. So I lost a ton of time on the last descent. But as I was coming to the line, I wasn't even excited, or I couldn't bring myself to celebrate because I was just too overwhelmed with just feeling like I was actually living a dream. It was like, this is something I thought about for so long, that to realize in that moment that, oh my gosh, this is actually real. I was just too overwhelmed with emotion. I was just crying. I couldn't actually celebrate. So I got to the finish, and Keith, my coach, was there. And it was like big hug. And then my team manager was there, big hug. And then I'm like, where are my parents? But I knew they'd been up at the top of the course. So they were still just moments later, they're running down the hill to the stadium, and my mom's coming, and they came right up. So those are some of the best hugs I've ever had.
You get to wear a jersey next year because of this?
Yeah. So as national champion, you get to wear the maple leaf. So you get to usually your team can design it, and it's like a custom jersey that kind of it will resemble the nation's flag in some capacity. So we'll have the maple leaf on it, and yeah, from now until the next national championships, I get to wear that for all of my mountain bike cross country races. They also did a short track national championship this year, so one of my friends, Sandra Walter, gets to have the national championship jersey for those events, but mine, I think, was the big one.
Pretty cool honor, hey, to be able to do that.
Oh yeah, it's super cool. I mean, not a lot of people get to win national championships, so it feels like a little bit of history that I get to be part of. Like prior to myself, Emily Batty was national champion for the past, I think, 3 years, and Catherine was national champion prior to that. And then just the list of people who have been national champion, like Mary Helen Premont, Chrissy Redden, Allison Sider, these are all, I would go as far as saying, almost legends, the champions of Canadian mountain biking. And I definitely do not have any of the accolades that they do, but now that I have this national title, my name gets written on that list, which is for me super, super cool.
Yeah, I wrote a little story and we hadn't chatted yet. So I just pulled from your Instagram and noticed that you said you made yourself a believer today. What did you mean by that?
I think I thought that I could win the race, but until it was actually happening, I didn't really believe that I could. So I wrote my plan for the race was that I had to ride like I could do it. And then just by acting, that my belief in my headspace would follow. So as the race went on, it wasn't until I got into the latter part that I actually stopped thinking that it was possible. And it was actually no, this is going to happen. I believe that I can do this. Holding the difference in thinking you can do something versus believing, it's a little bit deeper sense of being, I think.
Did you have some self-doubt before? For any reason, did you doubt yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe not so much doubt that it was possible, but just know that other people have been better than me this season. All season, Catherine's been better than me in all but one race this year, and we've probably raced a dozen or 15 times together. So she's beaten me in every single race except for the first one of the season. And Sandra Walter as well. They've just been consistently better than me all year. And I just felt that they came in, like, I think most people would have thought that they would be the favorites for the race, but I knew I stood a fighting chance if I rode the race correctly. And for me, that was just getting out the front as soon as possible, and just I had to make a gap in the first half of the race that they couldn't overcome in the second half, because at all the World Cups, like they'll just ride right through me and speed up as the race goes on, and I usually stay steady or fade a little bit. So yeah, that was like just the uncertainty, because I really struggled last week in snowshoe. I probably had my worst World Cup ever. Just like headspace and just body, just I felt like an absolute corpse. It was not good.
What did you finish in that race?
I finished 25th, but there were only like 35 people in the race, so it was a very small field. And it
Because
was
I
the
saw
first
that
time.
that was your best of the season officially, I guess, like result wise.
Yeah, the best placing, but as like a percentage of the field and my actual
Right.
performance, it was probably one of my worst. I was the first race I'd actually been lapped out of. And part of that is like I flatted on a technical section on the second last lap. So I was in position to make it through onto the last lap and probably finish like 21st or 22nd. But then I had the flats, and then I was pulled at like the point. There's a point on the course where if you don't make it by at a certain time, but after the leaders, they pull you so you don't get in the way. So I didn't make it to there in time. So I actually didn't finish the last lap.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know. What's your relationship like with Catharine? I had a long conversation with her, and she told me that you moved into her basement.
Yeah.
Uh, and I imagine she's somewhat of a mentor, but I don't know what the relationship's like. So, what's your relationship like with her?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like one of my best friends, and like in like a very almost like a looking out for me way, like as a mentor as well. Definitely she and Keith are like my family away from home. Kind of, I wouldn't say they're not my parents, but they definitely have kind of taken me under their wing. And yeah, it's just like having someone who's, in the past, since I've been out there pursuing the same goals of just competitive excellence in sport, and also who is your friend and someone that you just can live alongside. It's just very, very easy to feel very similar, and like you just actually understand what the other person is going through, and you kind of have the same balance in life. So yeah, I've learned so much that almost just by osmosis, like as much as what she could, verbalize and like, we can talk about, is just by observing and kind of seeing how someone exists, has been pretty awesome. I haven't figured out how to apply it all myself, but I have a better idea of what it might look like.
Are you still living in her basement, or do you have your own place now?
No, I made a bit of an escape when the baby was on the way. So I lived there until last fall, and I had intended when I moved to Kamloops to only stay until like through the summer, and then I had envisioned myself potentially going back to school here in Barrie, where my parents are. I'd been attending the college there for a second degree. But I really enjoyed my time in Kamloops so much, and just felt like it really was a good fit for me, that I just found my own place and kind of set myself up to be here like longer term.
Cyclocross, you have cyclocross coming up, nationals too, right?
Mhm.
Where's that?
Yes. Cyclocross Nationals will be in Victoria the last weekend of November. I had intended to do the World Cup. There's a set of World Cups in the US mid-October, and I had planned on doing those, but after struggling quite a bit through the end of the World Cup season, we decided that I'll just, having done nationals now, just take a break so I can recharge the batteries a bit. Because even though I had like my best race of the year, I don't think that means I'm actually ready to keep racing. I still think that the battery's kind of low, and my motivation is actually still pretty low. I turned it on for one day because it was really important, but overall I'm still,
Catherine told me you were exhausted heading into that race.
yeah, like after snowshoe, I had a bit of a breakdown, and I was like post race crying, but like not happy post race crying after nationals. I was like, called my parents and was like, I don't even know if I should go to nationals. I'm just like so done with this. It's just so frustrating having it's just a rough series of races. Like the two World Cups the previous weeks in Europe had just not gone my way, and I was just struggling immensely. And I don't enjoy racing when I don't race well. So it was really hard, but I felt like I had to, nationals was my big goal for the season and has been like to win a national title for a few years. So I just said, give myself a day. I'm just super emotional after a tough race and decided I would come to nationals, if not for myself, then for my team and for like the points just going forward to help my ranking. So I actually got sick, and I was sick for like Monday through Thursday, and kind of that forced me to take some downtime. So I didn't do much all week. And I think just listening to my body and just like mentally like trying to relax as much into it and not do too much, I think really helped. But also just the emotional energy that I knew I needed to bring for nationals. It was, even though I didn't feel like I was in the best shape, I knew the best way to have the best race was to bring my absolute max effort and get the most out of myself that I could, whatever little I felt that I had.
As
Turns
far
out
as
it wasn't that bad.
yeah, exactly. As far as the mental and the belief side of things go, did Catherine help you with that? She's been through a lot of ups and downs in her career.
I think, yeah, honestly, being able to see how she was able to go from giving birth to then like 2 months later being like in the 20s at a World Cup was pretty insane. Like the rate at which she improved and kind of came off of what it just like for times it seemed like me like this is going to be impossible for her to come back and be at a World Cup level. But she was just super determined and methodical with it. And again, just like being very conscious of the process that she was going through, it makes you just realize how much just your belief and then just the patience to get through things is really valuable. But then also in knowing that the results don't always come, it's not always consistent, and it's not always linear. Like sometimes your best performances come at unexpected times, or you might feel like you're stuck for quite a while, but we want to see progress constantly, but that doesn't always come. So you need to, again, like she's had such a long career, so it's not always been just like consistently getting better. There's these times where you're just consistently okay, and then suddenly something just happens. And improvement often isn't linear. It's a jump that you can't explain. And sometimes I think maybe that is more in your head and your state of mind than actually your fitness.
Just winning in any sport, there's a mental hurdle that once you overcome it, you really start to think, well, what can I do now? I can do this. I know I can do it now. That self-doubt is gone. It should, in some ways, like, you've proven to yourself you can do it. So how does it change the way you look at what you can achieve in your career?
I'm trying not to let myself change my perspective too much based on one race, because even though I was able to win this, and it's still like I've won one race this season. And if I look at the season as a whole, I'm still at like a low 30s, like a 30s World Cup rider. And just because I had this result doesn't change that. I still have to set up my training and my expectations and my goals according to where I'm at, and with like an eye on where I want to be. But I can't just train suddenly like I'm a new person because of this. It's still going to be, just working on like accepting where I'm at now and working on that. For sure I finished the race in the past few days. I've actually, even though I'm ready to take a break, I'm maybe the most motivated that I've been going into time off to be like, I'm gonna be better next time though. Like it's not like a chip on my shoulder, but I have the jersey on my back, and like I want to be better for myself, but also for Canada, because I get to represent, we all race for Canada, but I get to wear the jersey next year. So I feel like I have that extra opportunity to kind of fly the flag and represent. So I really am like, oh, it's gotta be better. I gotta be better. It's gonna happen. Like I actually believe that it will happen, as opposed to just hoping that it will. So hopefully that alone translates to something.
what about the goals? We emailed back and forth, and you had said you wanted to be top 20 World Cup. Didn't happen, but you also said I want to win the national championship. That did happen.
Yeah.
So do you have goals like that for next season?
Yeah, it was really cool to kind of call my shot and have it work out. I don't think that happens very often. So, I mean, next year, national championships are actually here at Hardwood Ski and Bike, so it's like my home course, and so I would to be able to now come back there and try to defend the title will be super super sweet. So that's I think is still my number one goal is I want to be national champion again. I want to race as national champion and win it at my home course next year would be amazing. But I think that the same goals I'm still want to get those top 20s, and I'd like that to be like I'd like to be a consistent top 30 rider consistently in the 20s, but be able to ride in the teens as well. I think would be some really good progress for me. And then yeah, it's difficult to quantify like what that really means. It just means I have to get a bit faster and race a bit smarter. But focusing on the World Cup still, I think I think it's the appropriate level of competition for me, but there's also like big European races outside the World Cup. So being able to get some international podiums would be super cool around those World Cups, just kind of on the weekends between, being able to compete at those events.
Right. And you kind of did that this year with Catherine living in France together as well, or based in France.
Yep. We raced in France and Switzerland a couple times and was able, I had a fourth place finish at one of the big races in Switzerland, which was really cool. It was like it was behind the eventual world champion and eventual Olympic silver and bronze medalist. So it was in really good company there. So it was like one of those cool races where I was able to, be for at least a time in touch with people who kind of seem otherworldly when you're at the World Cup. But when you go to these other events, it's just a little bit different somehow. Same with racing at nationals. It's just a little bit different.
So are you your plan then for next year? Are you still working at Spoke?
Yep.
So you're gonna work in Kamloops, live in Kamloops for the most part, and then head over and do all the biking over in Europe or in World Cup stuff next year.
Yeah. That's my plan. I need to see how team contracts work out for this year, and that'll determine how much I'll be working or not working. So best case scenario is I get a better contract and I'm able to kind of work a little bit less and focus more on the racing and maybe do some training camps. But certainly as long as I'm in Kamloops, I really enjoy being able to go work at the shop, because they're like, everyone there has become really close friends and just my companions, like other people who love bikes. So best case scenario is I get, better contract to ride my bike, but I can still have I guess the hobby job and help out at the shop, because it helps. I don't know, I just like meet so many people who now could get to cheer for me at the races, and then when I come back I always have people to ride with through the store. So yeah, it's really fun.
All right, any what do we not know? Give us one interesting tidbit about Jenn Jackson that we don't know.
I also cross country ski a lot, so people might recognize me from up at Overlander. I was the one skiing like all day all winter. That's how I do a lot of my base miles. So I cross country ski a lot, and my brother also races NCAA down in Boulder, Colorado for cross country skiing, and he's trying to qualify for the 2022 Olympics next winter.
Cool. All right. Well, anything else you want to add? My questions, I've pretty much asked all the questions I wanted to ask, I think.
No, not really. I'm just really glad that I found Kamloops. It was really not how I intended things to pan out when I moved there, but I don't know, I just feel really lucky that it all worked out.
Yeah, thanks for all your canoe and kayak club updates too.
Yeah.
Much appreciated. All right, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.